screen first. All right. Shh.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Sherdog.com. It's your man, Nate Walker, here with the Trenches, the live chat show. And of course, we've got a lot of good questions that we need to answer to satisfy your MMA needs. Now, I am once again joined by a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. He is an exemplary example of everything excellent. He's an incredible pillar of society. He's perhaps the most professional, most courteous, kindest gentleman to ever grace the backstage of a UFC event. And unlike me, he is not a very mean person. He is Jason Burgos, a.k.a. Captain Credential. Jason, how are you doing, my man?
I tell you, it still takes getting used to because I'm like forgetting. Like, oh, that's right, they can see me. It's not like before where they couldn't see and now they can see. But, you know, I apologize in advance. If there is a rumbling in the background, it's because the air conditioner's on. Because I'm sorry, it's like 93 degrees real feel. It's too damn hot. I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bearable. I don't want to sweat in front of you people. I want to look classy. I want to be classy and give you MMA stuff classy. And I need to be cool to do that. So let's go.
But what you should do, man, just so the sweat glistens off you, put some baby oil on your chest and flex for the lady.
I mean, the lady isn't here now, so this would be the perfect time to show that little.
All you ladies out there watching, it's time to shoot your shot. Time to shoot your shot. Jason Burgos is left unattended. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, I guess before we descend into full-on buffoonery, we probably should answer some of your questions and apologize for being late as usual. But you know, technical issues. It's just not what we do around these parts. But anyway, we're gonna start with a question from Yojimbo, who asks: is Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou 2 on the horizon? If not, who do you see as the next challenger?
If it's not, I think that's a bunch of fucking nonsense. It has to be. No, I mean, what? Really? Who else is I mean, unless John Jones came up and said, oh, yeah, okay, now I want to do heavyweight and I want to fight Stipe. I mean, yes, that would unfortunately be something I can see they pushing poor Francis to the side for, but why? Yes, that has to be the fight. I mean, yes, I know the first go-around wasn't exciting and Francis deflated like a whoopee cushion after a round or so, but I mean, he's done enough that he's earned it again, and maybe you feel like the whatever he did wrong the first time has been adjusted. I don't know, Anthony. How could it not be that, right?
Well, I mean, he would be the rightful contender, and that would make a lot of sense. But it probably makes even more sense if it were a trilogy fight with Daniel Cormier. If Cormier decides to stay active, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that will be a high stakes fight as far as legacy is concerned between both of them. The winner of that fight has a rightful claim to being the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. And that would be a serious fight that Daniel Cormier might be considering if he decides to stay active. I mean, I think at this point, the Jones trilogy fight seems pretty trash at this moment. Like, I don't think there was anything that we saw. I mean, although he did dominate Stipe in that first round, but I think the appetite for a Jones trilogy fight has gone way down in value. Now you do have the possibility of a Stipe trilogy. Other than that, yeah, maybe Jones going up to heavyweight. But the problem with Francis Ngannou getting a rematch against Stipe is that if the UFC is all on the Francis Ngannou train once again, and they're going to back him with all the promotional muscle possible, if he loses again to Stipe, he is in a no man's land, and he's in that dreaded Joseph Benavidez, Frankie Edgar territory. When you've lost against the champion twice, then what? So I think they might approach it a little cautiously with Francis Ngannou. Now, I will be very intrigued by that fight, mainly because we haven't seen enough of Francis to know exactly what he's improved upon.
Yeah, yeah.
We've only seen him for 2 minutes or something since he He lost to Derek Lewis way back when. So I'm not sure exactly what they're gonna do, but if you had to put a gun in my head, I say the DC trilogy would be next up for those reasons.
Fair enough.
Which so you would rather see Francis get the shot or?
Yeah, I mean, in a world where so many champions end up fighting the person they shouldn't, especially after they win the championship. Now this is Stipe's second go around. He's not new to the party, but it seems like so many times now you got guys that get the championship and then they're fighting someone they probably shouldn't, be an interim champion or the not the champion or champions in another division. So I think this is the one time where it seems obvious enough. I think what you said, Daniel Cormier, if he wants to be a trilogy, it makes sense. It does. And if they went that way, I wouldn't be disappointed about it. I'd be very intrigued. But Ngannou is the guy. He's earned it. He's destroyed legends. He's destroyed everyone in front of him on a path of destruction back to earning a shot at the title. And I think it's a good story, and I'd be fascinated to watch it a second time.
Yeah, and also another thing to make note of, Designated Member brought this up in the chat. He said he was reminding us about Walt Harris versus Overeem. Now, of course, if Overeem were to win that fight, I don't think we're really clamoring to see Miocic versus Overeem again. Even if StipeTap.com would be very, very interested in that matchup. If you follow that Twitter account, it's pretty funny. But aside from that, like if Walt Harris wins, yeah, I guess so. But are you really excited to see Walt Harris in a title fight? Has he earned a title fight, especially in comparison to Francis Ngannou?
No.
I don't think so. Here's an intriguing one. On that same card in DC is the return of Stephen Struve versus Ben Rothwell. So you think Stephen Struve sneaks his way in there?
No.
As the lineal heavyweight champion? No, but seriously, man, it's gotta be DC or Francis, unless Jones suddenly decides he wants to go up to heavyweight, and he doesn't seem to be too enthusiastic about that. And I think this slowly building rivalry between him and Johnny Walker, I think will keep him occupied at 205 for the immediate future. If Johnny Walker gets past Corey Anderson coming up soon. So I guess a lot of different moving parts, but yeah, like I said, DC trilogy is probably my favorite out of those picks. All right, so let's move on here. Money McGrabber asks, is it right to say that Jones is a chicken for not fighting DC at heavyweight?
No. I mean, if he doesn't want to... If he doesn't want to go outside of his optimal weight where he feels he can beat him, then no, not at all. I mean, if he's... This is the belief where you have to do crazy things to build a legacy, which is true. But if you're fine making a destructive historic legacy at a certain weight class, then more power to you. That's what Demetrius Johnson did. He didn't want to go up and take new challenges, and BJ Penn should have probably did that and not have gone up to lightweight again. I mean, to welterweight again, and some of these other guys, like, no, he's not a chicken at all. I mean, he knows he can beat this guy at that weight. He doesn't want to give him an extra chance. Like, that's like saying, going into a fight and sparring for like 10 minutes before the fight starts just to get a little tired, to give the guy more. No, he just doesn't feel that that's possible. So I not that I'm a huge John Jones supporter, but I can't blame him for doing it. It's the way he's dominating the division. Why go somewhere you're not ready to go and give a guy, your hated rival, a better chance to beat you? No.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't call Jones a chicken for this. I mean, he stood in front of Daniel Cormier twice. Twice he was victorious. Of course, we can put an asterisk next to those wins, considering there was some trickery as far as what sort of substances were in John Jones' system for both of those fights. Of course, the first one, he had the positive test for cocaine before then that actually wasn't supposed to be public information, and obviously the PED issues for UFC 214. So, but like, you beat the guy twice, like. And then I don't like the idea that in MMA we demand someone move up and down in weight. They don't have to. The guy is the best light heavyweight of all time. So if he stays at light heavyweight, what's wrong with that?
Yep.
Yes, we might be entertained to see him fight at heavyweight, and I know he was jaw jacking with Brock Lesnar in perhaps the dumbest Twitter feud known to man. but like, but seriously though, I really don't see why we have to force these weight class changes on people. Like, why? If this guy's comfortable there, then leave him alone. Let him shred everyone that gets put in front of him. I definitely wouldn't call him a chicken, especially since he beat him already twice. Now, it'd be one thing if this was a guy that Jones avoided at light heavyweight and then avoided at heavyweight again. Like, excuse me. Oh, sorry.
Bless you.
Yeah,
Gesundheit.
Ooh, man. But it's not like he fought him twice. Like, you can't duck somebody that you beat twice.
Yeah.
You really can't duck somebody that you've already been victorious on. If anything, maybe he just is bored with the idea of fighting Cormier.
And that's understandable too. I mean, you just say, beat it twice. The funny thing is that it's almost like because champ and 2 division champ, and that's like the fun cool kids thing to do. It's almost like people that dominate the division. It's almost their fault they're dominating. Like, what's wrong with you? You're boring me. Your greatness is boring me. I'm tired of your greatness. Go do something else. Go take risks. Go possibly get put your health in danger and mess up your legacy and take losses and maybe diminish your value. Go do that. It's crazy. Like, people got on GSP for that. People got on Demetrius for that. Like, good Lord, there's something, especially in a sport like this where the division gaps are fairly large. This isn't boxing where you go 5 pounds up the next division of 3 pounds. Jumping up and down is not easy. So what's wrong with just dominating in a one division? If the guy wants to do it, hey, it is what it is. I wanted Demetrius to go up, but I wouldn't call him a chicken for, not going up. He didn't want to, he wanted to stay where it was optimal weight. There's nothing wrong with anything optimal weight. Not enough guys do it sometimes.
Exactly, man. And then another note about Demetrius Johnson, like the whole narrative that he was scared to go up to bantamweight. Everyone, please remember when he fought for the title at bantamweight. Before he was a flyweight,
yes.
He was the #1 contender at bantamweight.
Yes.
So just drop it. Just drop it.
And he gave the legend a good fight. That was a tough fight when Cruz was as prime Cruz can be. He gave him a tough fight.
Exactly. And that was a Demetrius Johnson that wasn't even training full time. Like, he still had a job on a construction site. So, like, come on now. Let's get over the idea that someone has to move up to satisfy your needs. Let's just give it up. Just give that all the way up. And for the record, I hope I'm not stepping on any toes because I didn't check all the questions ahead of time. Can we immediately just put this whole Jose Aldo to bantamweight thing to bed? Can we get that all the way the fuck up out of here?
Why does he not want to go to lightweight? What the hell, man?
He gotta chop up his leg to make bantamweight.
Good Lord.
Like, man, just knock it off. Knock it all the way off. Yeah, I just had to get that out my system because I forgot to mention it on Off the Chain. So I just wanted to mention it now. Aldo, no bantamweight for you.
Like, Frankie, I get it. And even for Frankie, I think it's questionable. But if it's Canfield, he can do it. He's barely cutting for 145. I get it. This guy struggles to make 145, Jose Aldo. He's like 2 steps away from Aspen Ladd level sometimes when he's struggling to make 145. I don't understand. There's such amazing fights for him at 155. Why would you? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, man. All right, so let me address a couple things in the chat from Designated Member. Brings up a very good point. He said, should Jones' no contest over DC be a DQ due to the cheating? Shouldn't all PED instances be disqualifications?
I guess the thinking is, I get the point of view just making it a full DQ, but I guess the thinking is, let's say, oh, well, if he wasn't on the stuff, he wouldn't have won. And that we can't really confirm or deny that. So no contest means nothing. It almost is as it's the official way of saying the fight didn't exist. No one wins, no one loses, because we can't assume the other guy would have won if the guy was clean. So DQ, you shouldn't necessarily fully lose. You should just get, if you won, you shouldn't get it. Though, if there was like a loss, if you lost, I don't know how that works. If the guy who gets tested positive loses, do they still make it a no contest, or he just retains his loss?
I think they make it a loss. I think it stays a loss.
Okay, so then yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then he also said losses are financial losses too. So in that, I'm assuming he means that Jones, by not fighting DC at heavyweight, is turning down the biggest money fight that he has. Um, I understand that makes sense. But he's still making pretty decent amount of money beating up middleweights. So, and also with Chris Weidman and Dominic Reyes coming up as well, there are a couple things that are happening at light heavyweight that might prompt him to stay there. And I also wouldn't put it past Jones, just out of spite toward Cormier, to refuse to fight at heavyweight until Cormier retires.
yeah, I can see that. Yep.
I wouldn't put it past him at all, because you look at what's going on right now at heavyweight, and Jones is priming himself for a big money fight, regardless of whether Cormier is the other man across the cage. If he were to fight Stipe, that's a huge money fight. Mm-hmm. If he were to fight Ngannou, oh yes, we'd be watching.
Yeah,
If he gets his wish of Brock Lesnar, jumping out of the off the turnbuckles into the octagon, hey, that is a mega money fight. So I think Jones is going to be just fine on the financial losses, but of course he has good reason to not want to fight Cormier at heavyweight. So yeah, I think we can just let him do what he wants to do on that regard. All right, so let's move on from that. Our next question is from Twink182, who asks, we saw two very dominant, experienced, and unorthodox strikers in Daniel Cormier and Yoel Romero lose this weekend. Is this an example of how our sport is evolving? Is this the official passing of the torch for Yoel and DC, or do you expect either to make comebacks?
This question, it's not a bad question. I don't know why he considers both of them unorthodox strikers.
I can see why. They aren't the most excuse me, I'm stuttering like crazy. They aren't the most orthodox strikers. Daniel Cormier has like pretty weird, like herky-jerky movement. He has that long guard where he tries to do a lot of hand trapping, which is kind of unusual. And then Yoel is Yoel. Like there's literally nothing he does that's conventional.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, they still do a lot of technically orthodox things and run the. I mean, when I think unorthodox, I think something like a Tony Ferguson or a Stephen Thompson, like something a type of style you rarely see. Yeah, they do things that are a little different than normal. To me, I almost call it like orthodox remix. It's orthodox kind of level stuff with some remix takes on it. But that said, no, I do not see it as like a passing of the torch. I mean, me and you, we talked about a little bit after the Cormier fight. Cormier just had a poor game plan. He knew there was a clear way he could have did things, and he just deviated from it and fought in a style that wasn't favorable. And he fought a style that is just was not favorable to beating Stipe Miocic. Yeah, it worked the first time, but the second time around, probably wasn't smart. I don't think it's the sport evolving. Stipe didn't evolve. It just Cormier did not. He put his kicks in his back pocket. He didn't go for any takedowns. He headhunted. He just didn't fight the smartest game plan. The Stipe just, as a great fighter does, found a plan B or plan C, started working it, and then finished him. I mean, and then with the Yoel fight, I just think Yoel kind of looked like Yoel often does. He looks poor early, he loses a round or two, and then he has moments. And then there was a momentum shift in the second round, and the third round he probably took it. So I feel that fight went like a Yoel Romero fight. He took a little too long to kind of turn it on and get that momentum shift, and he didn't get that flash finish like he often does. But I think they were either par for the course or questionable decisions in the fight, and I wouldn't look at it as a evolution of the sport or a passing of the torch. I kind of just look at it as a bad night for a couple of legendary fighters.
Yeah, see, I definitely wouldn't consider it any sign of the sport evolving, because from a technique standpoint, we didn't see anything too crazy from either fight. Mm-hmm. But I will say the Yoel and Paulo Costa fight did feel like a passing of the torch in the sense, of course, it was close. It was, a lot of people had Romero winning on the scorecards, and I had it for Costa the first two rounds and the last round to Romero. So I had 29-28 Costa, but I'm not mad at a scorecard that favors Yoel Romero. But in the sense that it's a passing of the torch, that you have the sort of lingering number one contender at middleweight, who's just always right there in the hunt for the title, that now he's been someone has bumped him out of that spot, and also happens to be the other muscle-bound freak in the middleweight division. So from that standpoint, yes, that felt a little bit like a passing of the torch. Now for Cormier and Stipe, that didn't feel like a passing of the torch at all. First of all, Stipe is not that much younger than Cormier.
Exactly.
He was
Yeah.
what 3.5 years younger, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, than Cormier. So he's pushing 40 as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's an older guy, been around the block a lot, as well. So I don't think that's any sort of new generation. If anything, this is the same guard fighting each other. This is the same generation, keeping it in house like heavyweight tends to do, as there are so many older guys in that division. And it wasn't an evolution in that fight. It was simply Cormier getting away from his game plan, getting away from what worked in that first round, and paying the price.
Yeah.
And Stipe persevering, enduring a boatload of punishment. I want to say the total number of strikes he took, significant strikes, was like 118 or something like that. And before he found the finish, so he found a hole and he exploited it, and got that come behind win. So I don't think this was an evolution. I don't think this was a signal of anything other than a veteran outlasting another veteran with a savvy game plan, and a new guy who edged out in the scorecards in a brutal fight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see what else we have next. Europe One, good question from him. He asks, are the UFC's biggest draws non-title holders? Do you think needle movers should start headlining cards instead of title fights? Say, for instance, Diaz versus Masvidal, with Usman and Leon Edwards co-headlining.
I guess he means by headlining cards, headlining pay-per-views. Because I mean, they do already headline cards, just not the pay-per-views. ESPN Plus cards has non-title fights. Honestly, the majority of the time, it seems like title fights are just safe for the pay-per-views. It's an interesting case to be made. I mean, it really does seem like it in a lot of ways. Some of the biggest stars are not champions. I just think part of it is this is a weird time for champions with the UFC. You know, you had a champ at Cormier who's pretty marketable and pretty popular. John Jones is fairly popular, just he's his own worst publicity enemy. Robert Whittaker's had injuries. The lightweight division is always in flux, so you never know. And featherweight likewise, and but should they main event pay-per-views? I think we all can agree, yeah. Why not? If there's a great fight like a Diaz Masvidal, why the hell not? I'd feel bad for Kamaru Usman in his first title defense if he was the co-main event, but you know what? God, I'd feel bad. I feel like it wouldn't make sense. Like, if you're gonna have a title fight, it probably should still be the main event just to show prestige to the belt. But there's nothing wrong with having a pay-per-view that maybe doesn't have a title fight on it. And if it's just a great card, it's a great card. So it matters on the circumstances.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, if you're gonna have a title fight on the card, that should be the headliner, and I think we should keep it that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a title fight needs to headline a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
Diaz versus Masvidal is a pay-per-view worthy main event, and anyone who disagrees is still going to happily shell out their money to watch them fight in a scheduled 5-round bout. Mm-hmm. That is undeniable. And like, I'm reminded of, let me make sure I've got a couple of these figures right here. If I'm not mistaken, UFC 196, which is sitting at number 3 on the all-time pay-per-view buy rate for the UFC at 1.3 million. That was headlined by Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 1, with Miesha Tate versus Holly Holm in a title fight as the co-main event. So it has been done for a big enough fight. Now, I know someone will mention that, well, originally it was supposed to be McGregor versus Dos Anjos, and that was going to be a title fight. Yeah, I know, but still I'm right and you're wrong. If you can go ahead and put a title fight underneath a bigger fight, I don't like that, though. I don't like the precedent that sets. But
was there a rematch a pay-per-view?
Their rematch, the Diaz McGregor?
Yeah, the second time. I know the first time was supposed to be Dos Anjos and Nate stuck there. What about the second time?
It was UFC 202, and the co-main was Anthony Johnson versus Glover Teixeira. So there was no title fight on that. Yeah. And then also thinking about Nick Diaz and Anderson Silva at UFC 183. was another non-title pay-per-view headliner. So yeah, it's okay to do that. It's perfectly fine to do that. But for respect for the belt, and I know the UFC has gotten away from respecting the belts a lot, I say respect the belt. The belt should be the headliner on any card that is on, but you don't have to make every pay-per-view be headlined by a title fight, especially when you've got Diaz versus Masvidal on deck. Also, another one to think about, man. It's possible that the UFC screws this up.
Yes.
Because Diaz and Masvidal are very vocal about wanting this fight. I think the fan interest is ridiculous on this, and they deserve huge checks to make this happen. However, I do remember not that long ago another fight that both gentlemen wanted. Both of them seemed to actively campaign for, and the UFC torpedoed because of something stupid. And that was Cowboy versus Conor McGregor. What easily would be a pay-per-view headliner, apparently was stopped because they wanted to be a 3-round co-main event. So don't get in the way, UFC. Let it happen. Just let it happen. Put this as a pay-per-view headliner because it'll be more than worth it for everyone in the building. All right, so let me address a question that I've got on the chat here. Where'd it go? All right, here it is. Frank McEdgar, co-host Frank McEdgar, who will be replacing Jason Burgos before long.
You're lucky I let you back. Lucky.
What? Excuse me?
You heard. You're lucky Jay was busy. I would have had Jay again.
You know what? Because you actually are in control of the stream right now.
Exactly.
But that can change.
Oh yeah.
That can change. Not this stream, obviously. You got this stream all the way. Ain't nothing I can do about it right now. But you know what? I don't like the way you were talking. So Petty Officer Burgos is back. All right. So Frank McEdgar asked, "Do you guys think DC gassed a bit?"
Oh man, where was I reading? I forgot who said this. I don't know if it was Jay in the chat, or maybe I saw it somewhere on Twitter. Yeah, I think it was Jay in the chat. Talking about that DC, that he actually was 10 pounds heavier on Fight Night, which I did not know. And then, Jay, I think, was suggesting maybe he was cutting weight to kind of fool DC a little bit or whatever. And if that's true, if he was cutting some weight at all and just doing any of that stuff, and then still was like 240 something pounds on Fight Night, it very well could have been something like that. Like maybe he did tire a little bit. I mean, I think you even told me you felt like in the 4th round he might have been taking the round off and stuff like that, which is not uncommon. Fighters sometimes do this, especially a fight. And
Cormier especially has been known to do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's not a tall man. He's like 5'10", so to have 5'10", 240 pounds, grappling a little bit here, still taking shots from a heavyweight fighter, getting a little depleted from that. It's possible. I think it's definitely very possible, and it probably might have cost him if he was trying to take a round off in the 4th to recover, because that's where he lost.
Yeah. I think he did gas a bit, and that taking the round off will be a good indicator of that. Now I'll share something. I think I shared this on Off the Chain, and I know I shared this with you when we talked about the fight later on. Matt Hunter, who was, in charge of Mixed Combat Radio, also a Sherdog photographer and videographer who has been on some Sherdog programming as well. He was under the impression that Cormier may have been sick. He pointed out how he seemed really tired. He was sweating. My buddy Oscar Willis of MacLife was even saying that it looked like Cormier was cutting weight. Like he looked like he was in the middle of a weight cut. So something might have been going on with him physically, and if he just took the round off like he normally does, or whatever the case may be, he did seem off, and at the very least that was a very ill-advised continued strategy once it got into the 2nd round. So not quite sure what was. I mean, I guess he did say this at the post-fight press conference that he believed that he just kind of fell in love with his hands, and he's seeing Stipe be open to get those hits, but he was taking way too many shots, even with him winning the first 3 rounds on my scorecard. But what are you gonna do? All right, so let's move on. What else do we have here? Designated member asking, the UFC follows the money at all times. Why not with the headlines too? Very good point there. And also agreeing that Diaz versus Masvidal deserves to be a 5-rounder. What else do we have here?
Frank McGregor has a good one.
Where do you read his? Because I'm missing it on the my screen here.
He asks, do you guys believe that Weili Zhang is deserving of a title shot against Jessica Andrade, or is it simply a case of tempting the hometown crowd?
I think it's definitely more the hometown crowd thing, but I don't think she's undeserving of the title shot.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have gone with Michelle Waterson for the title shot if Rose Namajunas didn't want a rematch, which apparently she didn't. She's taking the Thanos retirement plan as of now and sitting on a farm or something. So I would imagine that Weili Zhang got this because they're trying to make inroads into China. But she still is a pretty deserving contender. She's looked pretty damn good, so I'm not mad at it. You know, it's not like they really have any real huge glaring like this one has to get the next shot. Michelle Waterson would be the closest, and that's kind of okay. You know, it's not overwhelming, so why not make the inroads into China? Weili Zhang with the title shot.
I think it's both, and I think that I had to look it up because I wasn't sure either. But there is one person, I don't think it's Waterson, that could make a legit case for, and that's Tatiana Suarez. Like, that's a person who has been fantastic, unbeaten, looked great. You know, I know a lot of people didn't love her last performance, but
but she's got like a neck injury or something from that last fight, if I'm not mistaken.
If that's the case, then it makes more sense. Because Waterson, I'm not in love with that choice, and Weili, and I think it's both because yes, this is not uncommon in fight promotion or any kind of major promotion where you're putting on events, be it wrestling, fight promotion, whatever. If you go into a market that you're trying to develop, you're going to go into that market with local talent. The card is filled with Chinese fighters, stuff like that. Look at Bellator in Italy and Alessio Sakara main eventing events in 2019, 2018, which is kind of bugged out. But you're trying to develop a market. That said, yeah, you nailed it. She's still deserving. She's won a bunch of fights in a row. She's unbeaten in the UFC. She's looking at her now. 21 and what's it? 19-1, one loss. I mean, she beat Tisha Torres. Tisha Torres was a top level contender for a long time. She beat Jessica Aguilar, who's a good fighter too. She's got good wins.
And former champion in World Series of Fighting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she's got good wins. So you're doing a little bit of both. And I would say keep it locked to Sherdog next week because I am tentatively set to talk to both ladies next week. So look out for that.
Look at you old journalist. Oh man, look at you. All right.
So, do I get an upgrade? Do I get an up from the petty officer?
Staff sergeant. You'll go back. No, gunnery sergeant sounds. So you're gunnery sergeant.
I would have thought getting a UFC champion would at least get me higher than that. But all right, I see it's a tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd. I'm being particularly hard on you because I didn't like all that trash you was talking on the stream last week when I popped in. So
I love that. I was so happy you came in. One of my favorite parts of the show. That was great.
I wish I could have just barged in and told you. That would have been my next move. All right, so we got a good question from David Dean, who asks, why do you think there are not more draws given in general as decisions in super close fights like the Romero Costa fight?
I don't know. I think it's just the nature of how, like, judges are. I don't even know if it's a taught thing. Maybe they are taught. Guys, go 10-9 all the time. Go with that. It's a thing we've talked about for a long time. Why maybe, like, I did an article for when I was writing for MMA Sucker like 3-4 years ago, like just talking about like how certain things like defense aren't scored, even though it's in the guide, guidelines for scoring. Defense is there. Why isn't defense? Why isn't shutting down the takedown scored? Why isn't maybe there's some more 10-7 rounds and those very things? Of course, like 10-10 rounds. So, it would be nice if judges, started having a little bit more fun, a little more creativity with the score. Let's not be crazy, but let's not always do 10-9. And if you're unsure, boom, 10-10, 9-9. I mean, I don't know why we don't have it more. I guess it's just not brainwashing, not propaganda, but it's just habit. And it's a habit throughout most combat sports, the 10-9. But, I think it really should happen a lot more.
Yeah, because the judges are not utilizing the full 10-point must system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those scores exist for a reason. 10-10 rounds do exist. There are plenty of rounds where if you're watching a fight and you can't tell who won, and your basis of it is that, this guy walked forward just a little bit more.
Yes.
Or this guy was throwing strikes but they all missed. Excuse me. Like if you're basing it on really narrow criteria that doesn't mean much of anything, it's probably a 10-10 round. It's probably a round that's impossible to score, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's so close that nobody won. It's okay to put that down. And then I think the George St. Pierre Johnny Hendricks fight was the perfect highlight of the flaws with the 10-point must system as it's currently applied to mixed martial arts. Because in a round where GSP just slightly outworks Hendricks and does a little bit more work than him and gets a kind of an advantage, 10-9. But in the same fight where Hendricks bust up GSP like there's no tomorrow, yet GSP wasn't close to being finished, 10-9. Like, those two rounds are not equal. Yeah. They're not. So we're having like forcing 10-9s. I if I'm not mistaken, our I believe I've had this conversation with our editor in chief, Mike Fritley, about that. He hates 10-10 rounds, and I remember he hates them. But you know what? They exist for a reason. He didn't like when I said it, but they exist for a reason, Mike. You remember that 10-10 rounds, Fritley.
I have an idea, like, and not an idea I thought of, but when I was talking to somebody, you know, who's in the business, they suggested maybe moving to 5 judges instead of 3.
I'm not mad at that, but also are 2 more people that are incompetent going to help?
That's true.
That's kind of. I mean, I think the judges themselves have to just be better.
Yeah.
Whether you keep the 10-point must system, which I think, if applied properly, is fine for MMA. If you alter the system to a half-point system or whatever other incarnations you can think of, it's the actual people that are writing those scorecards down that have the issue. It's the actual people that aren't utilizing the full resources of the system. It's the actual people that have problems interpreting what's going on in front of them. So until those actual people get it together, adding more people isn't necessarily going to help. So,
it would be great if there was a story, if someone had the time. Obviously, guys like us don't have the time because we're busy with life. But if a writer could literally go through the process it takes to become a judge, what is the education? You know, what is the guidelines?
I believe I don't remember what publication or what website did this and who the journalist was, but I do know there was at least one person that did that. One MMA writer who went through the training, and I've actually looked up some of the classes and stuff too. I simply just don't have time right now. When I get full-time work in MMA, I can revisit that idea. But as of right now, I got way too much going on. That
exactly.
Ain't happening,
and it's only gonna get busier in what, about 6 months or so?
In about 4.5 months.
Woo! Count down!
Yeah, it's gonna get real busy around here. Yeah, so there will be no judging classes for me.
No,
just Lamaze classes, and
and you will get judged
and all that stuff.
You will get judged by an adult and a smaller person for years to come.
Oh yeah. Oh, that smaller person's so gonna be judging me. All right. So wait,
I got another question.
Yeah. Okay.
Is Baby Walker's first word likely to be trash?
Likely, if he sees you first.
Oh wow! Well, he'll know what trash is not, so he'll see me not, and then he'll look probably to you and go, "Oh,
what trash is not." Look, he'll look to the wonderful example of his father. And then he'll see he's like, "Daddy, why you got a trash co-host?" And then he'll say, "Where's Frank McEcker?" So
he might. Or he'll be watching my podcast with Jay instead of watching yours, because it won't be trash. It'll be fantastic.
He'll be laughing at how shitty it is.
See, Jay, he said your show will be shitty too.
No,
Too late.
It'll
late.
Because of Jason. Not
too late. Nope.
Because of Jay. Jay's the man.
First thought's always the true one.
All right. Another question here. This question is from Mike S., who asked, "Yo, Ant, did I hear Dana call you mean in that post-fight presser?"
Yeah, tell me about this. What happened? How you call my boy mean, Dana? No. I am the only one that could call him mean.
Yeah, you're taking ownership of the pick on it.
Yes.
That was pretty funny. I was just asking him about whether they had any replacement fighters lined up for UFC 243, because obviously Robert Whittaker has had some issues making it to the cage in his backyard of Australia. So thought, hey, and Paulo Costa was considered, with the winner
Yes.
of Costa Romero was considered to be, okay, this is the shoe in. Maybe one of these guys can be there as a backup. And Costa was in no condition to think about another fight, was busted up, limped
Yeah.
his way to the post fight pressure. In fact, from what I understand, he was wheelchaired over there and then limped over.
Wow.
And his face was all battered up and whatnot. He said, hey, even if I heal up fast, I'm not doing that. So even Dana White was unsure whether or not he could even make back-to-back weight cuts like that. So when I asked him, he just refused to say that what names were in the works, but he said, don't bring it up. I don't want to talk about replacement fighters, and I'm a mean person. You know,
He just said, he looked at you and said, "You're a mean person." Really?
Well, it was more of a joking way.
Okay.
He
Thank
wasn't
God.
like scolding me. No, it was just kind of, he was in a good mood, so he said it in a nice way. But he probably thinks of me. Whatever, it's cool. It's all good, Dana. All right. What else do we have here? How about this? How about we go to the prepared questions, and I'll go back to the chat. What are we at next? Okay, I got a question from Tomas, which I guess is a follow-up from your one's question. Would the UFC have actually enough belief in the drawing powers of Masvidal and Diaz to main event a pay-per-view, or would that headline a fight night card? Yeah, definitely pay-per-view. Don't put this on the fight night card. Too much money. Jason, you want to add anything to this? I think we kind of.
No, at the presser, what did he say? Yeah, I was wrong. He is a needle mover, so there you go.
Yeah, he is. So, all right, if you can lace the people what the poll question and the corresponding results, please, my man.
All right, hold on. Let me make sure I can scroll down, take it to the results. Does Jay have them in there? Yeah, I don't see. Okay, they're there. All right, so the question is, are you glad Nate Diaz is back? With the 3 possible answers being, yes, we needed him, I'm indifferent, or the final answer, no, get the Diaz bros out of my face. And then in the results, at 76%, they said, yes, we needed him. 24% said, I'm indifferent. And wow, if you add up 76 and 24, that means there's nothing left, because 0% said, no, get the Diaz brothers out of here. No one is yet tired of the Diaz brothers.
Yeah,
at least not one of them.
Yeah, at least not Nate. I get it if you're kind of over Nick, and I am too. I'm over talking about him until he's actually scheduled for a fight. Nate, on the other hand, man, you didn't realize how much you missed him until you saw him. I didn't realize how much the game missed Nate Diaz until I saw him smoking on the stage at the open workout. When he lit that joint up and started smoking and passing it around the crowd, I was like, yeah, we missed this guy. We really missed this guy. To hear the ovation that he received in the Honda Center, keep in mind some of the other big names that were on this card. Daniel Cormier, one of the greatest fighters of all time. Stipe Miocic, perhaps the greatest heavyweight the UFC has ever seen on this card. Anthony Pettis, the author of the Showtime kick. Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa, like, just super freaks in this Clash of the Titans. And Nate Diaz by far got the loudest ovation. Nate Diaz by far was the biggest star of the event. And if you also look at some of the metrics as far as like the traffic on the videos and whatnot that were related to Nate Diaz, I mean, blew away everyone else.
Yeah.
Blew away everyone else for the most part. So, and actually a lot of Jorge Masvidal picked up a lot of traffic this week because he was there for the fight night, fight week festivities and gave out a few interviews and stuff. But he was talking about fighting Nate Diaz in these interviews. So I mean, there is Nate Diaz, as Dana confirmed, he is a needle mover.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, what up?
What do you think it is? What is the appeal of Nate Diaz? Because Nate Diaz is a very unique guy, very street guy. You know, this isn't necessarily a guy that can connect with all people, you know, that can truly understand that. And he's not like, oh, he came from the street, but he's very eloquent and charismatic, you know. He's almost a recluse in ways. And he's even a weird interview. Like in the post-fight I was watching after, it was a very odd interview, but he's funny, and he's odd, and he's weird. Like, what is it that makes him appeal to such a diverse group of people?
I think it's because he just seems authentic. Like, there's not a front to it. There's like, that's genuine stream of consciousness Nate Diaz. Like, he's not pre-preparing answers. He doesn't have any pro wrestling gimmicks.
Yeah.
He's not trying to play up any beef or any hyper. In fact, there was some sort of beef with Anthony Pettis. There was some a couple years ago, and there was
Yeah.
like legit incidents between their camps, and he downplayed it. Was there like it wasn't? He had no interest in hyping that up. It was just like, hey, it happened. It's cool. Everything's cool now. Like it was so authentic. He got up there and just said whatever was on his mind, and that's something we don't see a lot of. In a roundabout sort of way, it was kind of reminiscent of Daniel Cormier. Like Cormier is a guy who seems very authentic and just kind of speaks what's on his mind. But of course, he's an eloquent guy. He's a little more measured and stuff, and he's more thoughtful and introspective. Nate, on the other hand, just says whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still
Yeah.
himself. So I think it's like the flip side of that same coin. On one side of that coin, you've got this like eloquent charm of a Daniel Cormier, and on the other side of that coin, you've got this truly gruff, just real charm of Nate Diaz. So he's a guy it's hard to be. I'm very surprised by the amount of people that are indifferent to his return, because he's a guy that is very hard to just be lukewarm with. Either you really like him around or you really don't. And he's a polarizing figure because he's very authentic, and really just like his brother in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on from that.
Jay has a couple of good things in the chat. He mentioned Tatiana Suarez, going back to that one about possibly fighting Andrade. She said she'd be cleared from a neck injury around October. So what you said is dead on. She wouldn't be able to make that fight. And he mentioned Paul Gift, interesting name. He was the one who gifted the MMA community a story on judging certifications for Bloody Elbow.
Did you just say Paul gifted?
Yes, I did. It's genius, isn't it?
Automatic demotion.
What?
You're back to
Oh my God,
Oh,
Jay!
that
Jay,
was
begin the coup, Jay. Start putting the
was
paperwork together. Get the army together. The coup is in full effect now. Unbelievable.
It's total trash. Total trash. So the trenches next week, starring myself and Frank McEdgar.
Let Frank McEdgar set up the stream. Let him set it up. See what you do then.
I will set up the damn stream, and
No, you won't. You don't have the capabilities to do it.
I know how to do it. I just don't have the fucking power.
Exactly.
I would have to do it from my office. Yeah. I'll
And
do it
you
from my
love doing it there, right?
Hell no. Hell no. All right, but here is Frank McEdgar is on his way to replacing you yet again, Jason.
Wow,
Because
here we
comment
go.
He said, "I saw Ant during some live streams, looking fresh." Why, thank you, Mr. McEdgar. Thank you, sir.
We know it's completely biased and compromised opinion, so no one takes it seriously.
No, people take this seriously
No,
because
they
yes, I was
don't.
pretty fresh. I was fresh, man. Dan Hardy complimented my fight night attire.
You know,
okay?
I'm in the
I was
live
fresh.
control room here. How do you ban someone from a room? You about to get banned, McEdgar. Ban, I say.
How dare you talk to the esteemed Frank McEdgar, who has these incredible, accurate takes on the world of mixed martial arts. Yes, I was fresh as hell on fight night. Thank you very
Can I
much.
change names in here? Just put him as Frank. I'm telling you. What's this right here? Hide user on this channel. Don't make me hide you, Frank.
All right, so we got a comment here from Adam Irish Conundrum. That is
Wow.
some name.
Wow,
He
I like
says,
it.
Nate isn't a talker; he is a fighter. Yeah, I think that's kind of plays into like the authentic nature of him. He just does what he's gonna do, and consequences be damned. There's no sort of thought as to whether you like it, whether you dislike it, or anything. He just says it, does it, and I think people appreciate that, especially in a world with a bunch of contrived gimmicks.
I see Frank McEdgar earning points right away. Good job, Frank, because he just said, not true, I know the show needs Jason.
Look
Boom.
at Frank McEdgar playing
Frank.
both sides. But you know what? I appreciate that because maybe Dana's right. Maybe I am a mean person.
I think you are.
And I need a better co-host like Frank McEdgar to balance that out. And here he is extending an olive branch to petty officer credential.
You know what, Frank? Me and you can host the show. This guy doesn't know what the stream. I'll give you the information. You and me, McEdgar, next week.
I
Ban
know
next week.
I have access to the stream. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Oh my God, I gotta do better with these co-hosts. All right. let's move on from that. We've got the question from Iron Nick 94, who says Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa, among others, entered the octagon heavier than the limit of the weight class above. How much different would the UFC be if fighters were only allowed to cut a small percentage of their weight?
Wait a minute. That sounds like a hydration protocol. That sounds like a one championship thought.
Are you talking about the same one championship that had like 5 guys miss weight or miss their hydration benchmark, but still were allowed to compete?
You know what? Hey, they're not willing to go the PFL route and fire people. You know, I respect it. I respect what they're doing.
At least they pulled Rich Franklin from handling piss samples in cargo shorts and no gloves.
Yes, so, step up.
So that's good.
Indeed,
So yeah,
yes.
They actually had a guy with gloves on handling piss samples. So
But that said, you know, serious note. Yeah, I mean, like what we've talked about, you know, ad nauseum almost at this point with, you know, the hydration protocol. It is, in theory, you know, assuming, even though Anthony feels it isn't followed in depth all the time, it makes sense, the whole hydration protocol. So yeah, it would be a good thing if you know, something like that could possibly be instituted on a UFC level, you know, because yeah, it's scary. We don't want to see Aspen Ladd stuff. You know, we don't want to see some of these real. Perfect example. I talked to Derek Krantz, who he fought Vicente Luque on like 5 or 6 days notice in his UFC debut. I talked to him yesterday leading up to his fight in UFC Shenzhen, and he got the notice. He told MMA Fighting before that fight he was at 190 to make 170. He actually told me yesterday, because people were so worried about him making the weight, he actually fibbed to MMA Fighting and was actually 197. I mean, he said that by far was the worst weight cut of his life. He felt that sensation of what have you heard other fighters say, I thought I was gonna maybe die. Like, he went through that insane cut, 27 pounds in like 6 huge. You are demoted. You're traitorous, but I'd like it. Hail Hydra, Anthony. Hail Hydra.
This is one championship gave me a very nice coffee mug.
Yep, UFC ain't give you shit. Ain't give you nothing.
I have like programs from the events, and
they give those away.
Somebody gave me this cool hat.
Somebody.
Yeah, somebody gave me the hat.
Somebody. So one championship showing the love. But that said, yeah, weight cuts are crazy. You don't want to see people getting near death. Something like that would be nice.
But you know what? I'm also reminded of California. They actually have tried to propose some sort of limit on the amount of weight that fighters can rehydrate back to. I think it's like 15%, and making it a protocol where they can just take them off the card if they come in fight day over 15% of the weight that they weighed in at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking back to when California instituted the early weigh-in system. And then we had the separation between the early weigh-ins, and you have that 2-hour window to step on the scale, and then the ceremonial weigh-ins, which are just there as a show for the fans. Now, we did see on the first several cards, actually I think for the rest of the year, we saw like more finishes and just seemingly more exciting fights once that early weigh-in system was instituted, because you gave the fighters more time to hydrate, so they performed better. Shocking. It's amazing when an athlete isn't dehydrated, when an athlete isn't unnecessarily stripping their body of essential nutrients and fluids, that they suddenly perform better athletically. Isn't that amazing?
I have a radical idea.
What's that?
I have a radical idea. They won't do it, though. What would you think about no weigh-ins before the fight, one weigh-in day of the fight?
The only problem is that people will try to game that system.
Even then, because you're draining yourself on fight day. That you don't have enough time to rehydrate on fight day.
That's true.
Like you barely have enough to rehydrate the day before in the morning to the next night. So if they had it that day, trying to rehydrate on fight day, what you put your body through, it just wouldn't be possible.
Well, the thing is, wrestlers do that though. Wrestlers, they weigh in, and BJJ players and stuff. So I'm sure that limits the amount that they can cut. But they have been known to cut, and then 2 hours later they're competing.
Yeah.
So it can happen, man. And the thing is, fighters always seem to find some way to try to cut through the system, and that's just kind of what it is. I think we have to accept that, but I also don't want to open the door for them to just widely decide they're just going to abuse themselves. Because somebody will try that shit.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
Somebody will try it for sure. All right, so let's move on from that one. We've got a question for another one from Twink 182. Do you think the UFC traditionally avoids pairing fights in which the fighters train together, like Devontae Smith and Conor Worthy? Why wouldn't they have done that for this fight?
Well, wasn't Kama? Yeah, he was a late replacement anyway. Because I was gonna
It was like
interview.
4 days notice or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, they probably do always usually avoid it. Because I was gonna interview Devontae Smith, but my contact told me he may not even be on the card, so it wasn't a point of it. Yeah, I mean, I think they already do that, and I'm sure there's been times maybe they even miss it, and they contact the fighter, and the guy's like, no, that's my training partner, we train together, I don't want to do that, and I'm sure they avoid it, because we really don't see it very often. It's, the closest thing we see is, guys that used to train together, and it's been, a long time since then, but yeah, I'm sure they avoid it already on purpose now.
I don't think the UFC avoids that. I don't think the UFC really gives a shit. I don't think they care. In fact, I do remember a few times where the UFC or Dana White in particular would get angry with fighters about refusing to fight each other because they were in the same camp. I do remember there was some issue with Tyron Woodley and Hector Lombard.
Fitch and Koscheck
as well. I'm trying to think, what else was there? There was some hesitancy with the although of course now we can debate how close of training partners they were, but originally Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz was delayed for that reason. I don't think the UFC really cares, and in fact, Dana White has gone on record saying that you only have such a window to fight and make money, so you can be friends later, sort of thing. And the UFC has put plenty of training partners in front of one another. I'm reminded fairly recently of Overeem versus Arlovsky, both training at Jackson Wink at the time.
Yeah, but didn't Arlovsky leave? He was in Denver or something like that, right? He
might have left for that particular fight, but they were training partners. I mean, they put Travis Brown had already left Jackson by the time he fought Andre Arlovsky, but they were still friends. So the UFC has done it before. They don't care. I believe it's the fighters that resist that for understandable reasons. It's got to be pretty difficult to knock out your friend. It's got to be very difficult to do that for some people. I mean, some people don't have a problem with that. Donald Cerrone don't have a problem with that. He fought Melvin Gillard, no problem kicking him upside the head. And Gillard had no problem trying to dislodge his head off his shoulders. So I think it's individual fighters that resist it, but not all of them do, because some of them just like that knucklehead shit. All right. Okay, let's see here. What else do we have? Adam Irish Conundrum on the chat asks, I don't understand the weight cut bullcrap. Why cut 30 pounds? I don't understand it either. Yeah. He also says the weight cuts seem to weaken the fighters so much that there are not a lot of finishes anymore. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I'd have to see statistics. I don't know if there's less finishers now than there were before. I mean, and that could also be chalked up to just better athletes, better fighters in the sport, or at least we're going to talk about the UFC, better talent. So it makes it hard to finish people. So it'd be tough. I'd have to see more statistics to really make an opinion on weight cuts are affecting finishers.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Like without the stats in front of us, But one thing for sure, just common sense says, if you are destroying your body, you're probably not going to use your body to its optimal capabilities. Mm-hmm. And that just seems to make a lot of sense. So if that leads to less finishes, wouldn't surprise me.
And also to add, I mean, there's always been we talked about it. It was not we talked about, but it was surrounding like Luke Rockhold going up to 205. There's been people that say maybe weight cuts affect chins, so that would be counter to the weight cutting affecting finishes.
Well, yes and no, because I'm glad you said that, because immediately after the words left my mouth a second ago, I thought of the counterpoint. Mm-hmm. A weight cut, like the bad weight cuts, could affect it to where the fighters don't perform properly and they don't get a finish, or it could affect them to the point where the other guy gets to finish them because they aren't at their sharpest.
Yeah.
But either way, it's the quality of the fights that go down. So whether it's a finish, whether it's a decision, kind of doesn't matter if the fighters themselves just aren't healthy. Healthy people have better results, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least create a better product for us to watch. Yeah. So, Yeah, Matt Wells from the Slip and Dip podcast. Shout out to the homie Matt. He jumped in on the chat saying, if anything, weight cuts contribute to more finishes. And that's what, but it's the wrong sort of finishes. It's not the finishes where the two guys are at their absolute best and one guy just pulls through with something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's because one guy is clinging to life by his pinky and the other one wells away at his dehydrated head. So
And to go back to the Derek Kranz point, he told me, and you can see it in the fight. He went hard at him early. He was actually, doing good against Luque. Got him to the ground, takedown, got his back, going for a rear naked choke. He even got a guillotine, and then he pretty much said when they both got to the feet, he had nothing left. And this was the first round. A minute or two into the fight, he had nothing left after cutting so much weight. Of course, he had an extreme cut, but these tough cuts for anybody, you just see a bunch of times guys just lose energy like that. And they get finished, and that's what happened to Krantz.
Yeah, you get into a little tussle, man, and especially, I know I've said this before. I'm not sure if I said it on this show or on Off the Chain or something else I've done before. But if you've never trained MMA, you've never had like full on MMA sparring. One of the most tiring things that you can ever have that ever happen to you is you get taken down. Like you're standing up striking, you get taken down. You're fighting, especially on the bottom for a little bit. Or you're wrestling through the clinch, and you separate yourself and get up, and you're back to striking, you will be more tired than you could ever imagine. If you've never experienced that, trust me, it sucks. So imagine doing that, having lost a unnatural amount of water weight the day before.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be a good day at the office for you. All right, so let's move on from there. Well, I got a couple of comments here. We'll go ahead and throw those in. Frank McEgger saying, I thought there would be more TKOs and KOs because of the dehydration of the brain. The brain takes 3 days to fully rehydrate after hard cuts. Yes, that is true. But the quality of the fights is I think, what should be the primary concern.
Yeah.
The quality of the fights means we get a decision. If it means to get a finish, we at least get the best possible product. All right. And Matt Wells also saying less finishes are probably due to higher skill level combined with lower risk taking due to jobs always being on the line. Gotta just secure wins in the safest manner. Absolutely. Okay, let's move on from that. Europe 1 with a question here. Do Henry Cejudo and Tony Ferguson play up their weirdness for the camera, or are they two thoroughly peculiar guys?
Before we get to that, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Jay last week when we talked about Henry Cejudo. Is Henry Cejudo, for as gifted an athlete fighter he is, talented champion 2 division, is he the corniest superstar fighter athlete you've ever seen?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the question.
But I like it though.
What?
I'm
tired of it already.
I like it
Well, I'll bring up this then. I'll bring up this.
The
Wait.
intergender thing is dumb. The intergender thing.
Yeah, and I brought it up to Jay last week. This is a sport that has a problem with, domestic abuse right now. We need to get away from this. We need to get away from a man beating on a woman, especially when you're one of your elite champions. Cornball.
That I'm not a big fan of, but I'm glad Jay pointed this out on the chat. I brought this up on Twitter, I think yesterday, because Cejudo issued another challenge to Shevchenko and said the winner buys dinner. My first thought was, oh, this guy's been trying to get a date the whole time. Like if that's what it is, like, okay, you want to ask Valentina Shevchenko out, man, just holler at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, just holler at her, man, I mean,
but that's why he's a cornball, because he just doesn't holler. He doesn't just slip into the DMs. He just does this stuff and puts up weird videos. Even the thing with the Bellas didn't work out, and that seemed like a damn slam dunk. No?
Yeah, that did. I thought he was going to tap one of them, but Cejudo, man, he just needs some game. That's all. He just needs some game. That's really all this boils down to, because I don't envision a world where. Like, for instance, I didn't get with my wife by having some intergender fight with her.
No? Well, you did that after you were already together. Then you have the intergender fights.
Yeah, no. No intergender fights here, man. Here we go. Unemployed Mario Yamasaki adding this on the chat. Tito Ortiz was the corniest.
and you're Yamasaki. You're dead on. He's still a high level of corn, like a really well, what's the word? A fermented corn for sure with Tito. But like this guy's doing it on a bigger level in like a social media era, and he's getting all these views, and I feel like he's taking like. Chael was the one who really kicked open the door of like really weird WWE-esque fight promotion, and then Connor took it to a new level. Tito was original corn. Now we've got the new brand for 2019 and Henry Cejudo, and he's the whole cob of corn. Instead of some kernels, he's the cob and the stalk on some of these occasions. Especially when he brings up intergender, he's the corn and the stalk.
Well, here's where I'll separate Tito Ortiz from Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is joking. Like it's really bad jokes. They're not funny, but he's joking. And in some sort of weird way, it's kind of entertaining. Tito, on the other hand, is dead serious.
Is he, or is he kind of joking too? He's just not laughing at it.
Tito is dead serious, man. Tito is dead serious. I don't like when he crushed that juice box. He meant that shit. He struggles. He like when the press conference when Chael was just going at him the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he had no idea what to say or what to do. Like this man lives in a state of corniness all the time, but it's so serious.
Nah.
It is so serious. Like this is the same guy who is fighting in Combate against a beloved Mexican combat sport athlete, talking about this is the battle of the wall.
You know what? But I will throw this at you. I can take serious corn, and if you're not trying to be funny, whatever. I hate funny corny. Who likes the guy that laughs at his own jokes? That's what Henry Cejudo is. He's the guy that he thinks he's hilarious, and everybody in the corner is like.
But it's so
I
bad.
can't.
It's so bad. It's funny. It's kind of like
can't.
It's like Batman and Robin. It's so bad. It's kind of good.
He needs like suspenders and a horn and like being on stage with like Gallagher and smashing watermelons. Like it's gotten to that level.
But see, at that point, then you cross into Colby Covington territory, where it's so ridiculous and it's no charm to it whatsoever.
No.
It's where it's just like, wow, this is just really shitty. Like Tito is just like sincerely really shitty.
But at least Colby is playing a heel. Like he's doing stupid stuff, but he knows he's trying to get you to hate him so you can pay to see him get fucked up. That's clever. But Henry's just trying to be funny and draw attention in a weird way. I still don't understand it. I don't
know, man. Henry at least seems like he's an okay dude.
He does, but that's what I'm saying. Going back to he's the guy laughing at his own jokes at the party.
But that's not so bad in comparison to Tito.
Well, we're talking about corny though.
Yeah,
that's corny
as hell. Tito's corny as hell, man. And then Kobe got that goofball ass grin when he got that cheese smile.
But it's a villain grin. Thanos has had a grin too.
Man, with those cheap Instagram thoughts, they flank him everywhere, and they look bored out of their mind. Did you see the Food Truck Diaries with him and Brendan Schaub?
No.
Man, I'm telling you, it was entertaining because Kobe, when he peels the layers back, it seems like an interesting guy. I know you interviewed him before this character took over, and you didn't really, you said good things about him, personality wise and stuff. So Kobe might be an okay dude. Who's hanging on a really trash gimmick. But man, those two girls that he had flanking him during this Food Truck Diaries, man, they look bored out of their minds. They look so bored. They were just sitting there, just staring off into space while he's telling his ATT stories and stuff. And they look like they had no idea what the hell they were doing.
They probably did. He probably just got their services like an hour before, and they don't even know who the hell he was.
Man, he probably just cashed after him $50. Saw him at the Starbucks across the street, and like, come on. And they just sat there looking cheesy.
Jay just made a great point. He said he's suggesting that I'm saying Henry Cejudo is creamed corn. He's not just a cop, he's creamed corn because it's soggy and it's corny and it's just not for a lot of people.
Man, all right, so I'm also going to bring up something Jay put up in the chat because this is exactly why Tito Ortiz is the corniest champion in the history of mixed martial arts. And I quote, he's reaching for those grapes. He's trying to make his wine, and the wine is already sounding like a violin with that cheese and wine.
That's
What
poetry,
the
baby!
fuck?
Poetry!
What does that mean? What does that mean, man? Like, please explain that to me. How does that not make you the corniest person that's ever walked the face of MMA?
It's art. Art doesn't have to make sense, Anthony.
It damn sure don't make sense. That makes as much sense as a Jackson Pollock thing. Okay? That
Pretty much, yeah.
That makes zero sense whatsoever. Like, what the hell is that? So between that and Colby Covington, and with the cheese grin and the two board thoughts, sorry, man. Henry Cejudo is not the corniest guy out there. So wow. I walk back my earlier statement and saying without a doubt that Henry Cejudo takes the cake, because Henry Cejudo maintains a certain level of charm while he does it, even if we find it cringeworthy.
Let's take it to the chat. Everybody in the chat, write who you think is the corniest. Is it Tito, Henry, or is it Colby? Give us your answers, and we'll see it in a couple of minutes.
Unemployed Mario Yamasaki saying Tito takes the cake. He's also he's also nominating Kevin Lee. Oh no, not Kevin Lee.
Nah, yeah. I mean, he's weird, but nah.
He has some interesting wardrobe choices.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's eccentric.
Yeah.
I don't think he's corny.
I remember one time at the press conference where he fought Michael Chiesa when he talked about his mom coming to the fight or something. Somebody told me that he looked like he was dressed like Jodeci. Thought that was funny. Kevin Lee just has the interesting wardrobe, but the words that he doesn't say a lot of corny stuff. And even if you don't like him, it's not really corny. You might think he's too arrogant or something, but corny, nah. Matt Wells saying Tito and Colby are 1 and 2.
I was looking Tito by a landslide at this point.
Yeah.
All right,
Jimbo saying
enough.
Cejudo. Adam Irish Conundrum saying Tito sold fights, got Ken after his prime. He did, but he's still corny.
Yeah.
Just super corny. But at that point, but funny thing is when he was beefing with Ken was the corny one.
Yes. That's he was.
That, like, beat you to a living death.
Yes.
And he like tried to kick the chair at him and stuff. but yeah, Tito is just super corny. A designated member saying Colby is his number 1 for corniest, but he's saying at least Tito is funny. Tito is unintentionally funny. Like, Tito is dead serious. Well, and I'll say this, like I've interviewed Tito once. That was ahead of the third Chuck Liddell fight, and then I saw him at the Fighters Awards, and I had some conversation with him after we had a few to drink, and he actually started going into his same interview routines in this conversation. Like, I was like, hey man, I thought you were retiring, man. You why are you coming back? And then he started going on about, oh, I've been in this game for 20 something years, and I've had these surgeries, that same spill.
Cracked skull.
Yeah, he went through that. It's like, this dude is rehearsed corny, and very serious about it too. Tito, corniest. Number 1 cornball.
I like to add, designated member has said unintentionally funny are often the funniest.
Yes. Yeah. Marty LaGuardia saying Tito the OG of cringe. Yes, he is the OG of cringe. When we talk about cringeworthy and we keep on bringing up Cejudo, we have to at least acknowledge the charm behind it. And while I don't like intergender championship and all that, he's still kind of like a funny, entertaining dude. He's a guy that I think even when you see how cringeworthy his self-promotion is, you can sit and have a beer with him and have a good time, have a laugh. Do you want to sit and have a beer with Tito?
Well, you know what? When Tito was in his prime, he might have been better. He's been through a lot of fights and a lot of life. Let's see Henry Cejudo at 40. He may be a real corny man. He's like new Coke. He's new cringe.
Yeah, new Coke. All right, designated member nominating Waleed Ismail, saying he's angry corny.
But that seems funny though. I could probably like angry corny.
Waleed is a funny dude, man. Yeah. So I'll tell a Waleed Ismail story of mine. At 229, I interviewed Alan Patrick, who he was managing or cornering or whatever, and obviously he was translating for him as well at the media day. Slowly but surely, Waleed takes over this interview, and I wish I had a video of this. I went because I was just doing like audio interviews and transcribed them into articles. And in fact, I don't even think I pulled an article on this one. This one just kind of sat in the archives. But he just slowly but surely became the interview. And I'm asking Alan Patrick, you know, how ready are you feeling for this fight? Asking him about his opponent and all that. And I get the sense that Waleed is adding his spin on each answer. And it seemed like Alan would say like 3 words, and then Waleed would go on for like 5 sentences. So I'm like, okay, Waleed is definitely adding his spin. Then it got to the point where Alan wasn't answering anything, and Waleed was just like, yes, and he's ready, and he's hyped up, and we're gonna do this, and he was fired up. This man had spit flying out his mouth. His face was turning red, and he was all jacked up. Waleed Ismail is a funny guy. Right? Funny guy. All right, let's see what else we got here on the chat. What the hell did this dude?
I just saw that. Don't even acknowledge this nonsense.
Wow, that is one of the dumbest, most disgusting things I've ever heard. Oh, okay. Oh, he's one of those shitheads. All right.
Yeah. No.
Peace. All right. Anyway, Matt Wells also co-signing on Waleed's on the Waleed story. I'm guessing Waleed has done that with him as well. Adam asking, what about Khabib? He's crazy as fuck. I've talked to Khabib in the sense of like a press conference question or two here and there, but I mean, corny? No. He's, and I would never call that man corny. No, I don't want to die today. I don't want to get stomped on the head from the cage. So, pass on that. Khabib is the great guy, Khabib. Don't ever slander Khabib again. I want to live. Okay, we're gonna take this question from. Does that say Will KO?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if it doesn't, that's what I'm saying. It is Will KO.
I know. Yeah. Close enough.
After an excellent victory last week against an in-shape top 5 opponent, what is next for the old man in the pub?
That video was horrid, man. That was hard to watch. I mean, I've seen people say, "Oh, he like disrespected Conor." I don't know if that's hearsay, but it almost felt like a mafia moment where like a made man slaps a regular person, and that regular person acts like nothing could happen and do nothing. And that thing was awkward to watch, man. I felt bad for that guy.
Yeah, that was not the business, man. That was terrible. He didn't drop though.
Yeah.
He took it like a champ. He took it like a champ, man. Old man got a chin on him though, for real.
He does. Yeah.
He's got a chin on him. I'm so sick of the antics of Conor McGregor.
Yes.
Like, at this point, man, book a fight, stay out of trouble. Just knock all this shit off, man. What are you doing? Fighting old men in bars because they don't want to take a shot of your whiskey.
When do you think he's coming back? Because we were talking for a time, maybe 2-3 months ago, about the New York car looking like this New York car. He's not going to be on it.
Well, let's not forget too. There wasn't that long ago he posted up a picture on Instagram with his hand in a cast. So I would suspect there's some injury things going on there. With that cast, he might have broken his hand or something. I don't know. So something to consider there. But what I really enjoy about some instances like this in mixed martial arts is how fast the internet goes to work. Some of the memes related to Conor's fight with this guy in the pub, and if I'm not mistaken, this actually happened like in April, and the video just came out. But some of the comments, some of the memes and stuff were hilarious. There was one, and I think this was, I want to say this was on Submission Radio's, one of their videos. This comment said, it said, if I had a full camp, he never would have touched me. In quotations, old man at the bar. So yeah, I do enjoy that part, but I mean, come on now, you fighting old guys. Why?
Breaking people's phones, get into possible sexual offenses. Like, good Lord, man. Good God.
Yeah, man. That's crazy. All right, so let's see. What is next? Designated member saying, "Don't fear me, fear the consequences." Was goat corniness. You remember that from Paul Buentello?
Oh no! Wow, that actually might have predated like my serious interest in UFC.
Okay, yeah. So that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. I believe I had that on. I wrote one of the videos for MMA on Point that was top 10 embarrassing moments. I think that was in there.
Was I remember my friend when I got into MMA telling me about this guy. I missed it. Was Carl Parisian on the Ultimate Fighter saying, "Don't you know who I am"? Was that on the list?
No, that was not on the list.
That's a high level of corn as well.
That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Mike S. With a question here says, "Yo, Ant, is Pettis becoming a soft landing matchup for elite guys who need a win or coming back?"
I don't think so. I mean, it's not like Thompson was like that. That was just a fun matchup. Those two almost themselves put together. I don't think so. I think that was just a really fun match. I'm sure they gave Nate a list of guys he'd like to fight. That was the one he picked, and that's just how it worked out. But I don't think he's that at all. I mean, he's definitely putting himself in the conversation as a guy that's starting to lose more big fights than he wins. But he's still a big name and a big star. So he'll always be the Wheaties guy, as Jay so affectionately appreciates.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a tough dude still, man. He's also a guy who's one of those, those one-shot kill artists that at any moment can just land that kick that separates you from your consciousness. So you always have that to worry about. But I think it's just the blueprint is clearly written on how to beat him, and everyone follows that blueprint as close as they possibly can at this point. And more times than not lately, Pettis doesn't really have the answer for that. But I wouldn't call him a soft touch at all.
He's one guy that he's looked at as a really good fighter, and he is. When you become a UFC champion, WC champion, you are a high-level fighter, one of the better fighters of a decade or whatever. But that's a guy that really hasn't evolved too much. He actually went back to his style. He was evolving into trying to become a little bit more well-rounded in wrestling and dealing with that. And he didn't feel it was worth it, so he went back to his style. So it's a weird thing, like to see somebody at such a high level like that not really evolve. But then again, neither has Nate Diaz. So. It's just like I think you nailed it perfectly. The blueprint is out there, and people are using it.
Yeah. Mike is also bringing up something he said. To be honest, I figured Pettis was getting saved for Conor, so he wouldn't go on a 2-fight losing streak. Plus, he's a legit opponent. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah, that actually would be a good fight, and especially now, both of them coming off of a loss. I like that fight.
Yeah,
I like that fight a lot. All right. I believe we got Who You Got now. Bellator 225 taking place this weekend. Is that a Friday or a Saturday card?
It's this Saturday.
It's Saturday? Okay, cool. So, Jason, Matt Mitrione, Sergey Karatanov, who you got?
I actually sent in my picks today to Jay. I'm actually going to pick Karatanov. Matt Mitrione's been very good since he's been in Bellator. He's got a lot of key wins, stuff like that. I just feel like this is sort of like the first, outside of Fedor, like the first kind of, nah, because Roy Nelson too, but just a good, legit striking heavyweight who's still pretty good now, has a durable chin, and can really deal it out seriously. Very good boxer. Matt Mitrione, like a video I was watching, he was talking about his boxing is better than your average heavyweight. Karatanov is just a tough, durable guy that's been around for a long time and still pretty good, and has stayed consistently pretty good for a while. Is he a title contender? I don't know, probably not, but I just feel that in this particular matchup, especially Matt Mitrione isn't a guy that has a unstoppable chin. That doesn't mean he can be finished all the time, and usually his weakness is wrestling, but he can be had on the feet. And I think a lot of former NFL level players have probably had a ton of concussions that might have been undiagnosed for a long time. So I just feel like if it's a chin off and it's a stand up fight, and even if and also factoring Karatanov, I was looking it up for my questions tomorrow. Dude has like a key lock, an ankle lock on his resume, so he can take it to the ground, and do some things, and if he so choose, he's still going to be the better guy on the ground. So I think he has more tools to win this fight.
I'm with you on this one, man. Karatanov is like, with the exception of Fedor, probably the best heavyweight that hasn't fought in the UFC.
Yeah.
And Mitrione, for all of the good things about him being an elite level athlete, him having a lot of speed and agility in comparison to other heavyweights, I don't think from a technical standpoint he's really improved a whole lot over his career. And in fact, he still kind of relishes in the fact that he doesn't have much of a ground game. Karatanov definitely has the tools to win this fight. And like you said too, man, we've seen Mitrione take some shots and get hurt.
Yeah.
Let's not forget when he defeated Fedor.
Yeah.
How dangerously close he was to getting knocked out himself.
Mm-hmm.
Let me before I screw this guy's name up, because I always do, let me make sure that I'm going to read it correctly. When he fought Carl Sunamatanov,
Say that again. Say it again.
I'm not when he fought him, do you remember how close he was to getting his lights put out?
And I think against Ole Thompson, he might have got hit too. I think he got hit by him. I think both of. Damn, I think he was on a streak for one time in the Bellator that I think until Roy Nelson. Yeah, I think he got hurt in every fight. Like he got hurt against this guy, Thompson, Fedor, and then against Roy Nelson was probably the first fight I don't think he got hurt on.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. So Mitrione has gotten his chin cracked quite a lot. Karatanov, despite having a very long career, he's got some earlier KO losses, but in the last, I think the last time he was finished was
Ayala.
Ayala.
And Ayala, you can't sleep on him. He's deceiving physically, but he's a kind of fairly strong, athletic, and a young guy. So I would chalk it up more to just unexpected speed. He got caught, but can happen to anybody heavyweight.
Yeah. So I think Karatanov gets it done here. I think he's the better guy technically. He probably has the more durable chin, and he's got more ways to win. But let's say a prayer for his testicles. Nothing bad happens to them.
I was really tempted to ask. I'm tempted to ask questions about that tomorrow, but I'm probably gonna leave it alone. Though I was tempted to maybe add for Austin Vanderford, who was on that same card, to maybe ask him what's the over under on another nut shot. But I'm gonna stay away.
Yeah, just stay away from that. Yeah, leave that one alone.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to imagine having. I don't want to go through like the interpreter. So was that like his worst nut shot? Could you tell? No. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't want
to. You have to cup them, I guess.
And I have some good pictures of him. I was at his fight against his second Bellator fight, and when he made some amazing faces, like "Leave me the fuck alone." And I know he wasn't trying to say that or express that in his face, but Karatanov has a face like, "I'm not interested in playing games, so I'm not gonna play games with him." No.
All right, now before we do our preview questions for the UFC's event in China for next weekend, I do want to address a couple of questions that got added to the chat. So we got one from Matt Wells who's asking, speaking of blueprints, who has the worst inability to take body shots, DC or Matt Brown?
That's a good one and I think somebody brought it up in the chat too a little bit earlier when we were talking about that fight. And I'll never forget it as a DC fan. I even got scared him getting hurt against Anderson. Anderson gave him a nice kick to that liver area, and he didn't like it and went shot for a takedown quick. But yeah, it seems like Matt Brown. There's somebody. There's another one. Oh man,
Donald Cerrone would be my pick.
And Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is another one.
Yeah.
That he looks like he's kind of the guy that he gets hit to the body and he probably farts afterward. He looks like, because he eats a chicken or whatever. He said that one time that he had the stomach issues, whatever. But yeah, I would say of those two, Matt Brown, because Matt Brown has had those reactions where it's like,
yeah,
and that's, DC's never done that. He's at least kind of kept it in, like,
Yeah, DC has still won those fights. Of the Stipe fight, so he still beat Anderson Silva. We can't say the same for some of the body shots that Matt Brown has taken. Yep. And same thing with Donald Cerrone. Like the body shots ended up being what finished him off against Anthony Pettis. Also, what led to RDA knocking him out in their rematch.
And Lewis has been close a couple of times. I think that's what led eventually to him losing to Dos Santos. I think he took a body shot. And I remember against Travis Brown. I thought Travis Brown was going to win that fight because he hurt him to the body. And then, Derek Lewis did Derek Lewis and laid those hands on Travis Brown's face. And it ended soon after. Yeah,
exactly. All right. We got one more question here on the chat. Says, do you think Fedor would have adjusted to UFC rules? Crow Cop didn't.
A friend of mine always brought up an interesting point And I think it affected just more the Crow Cop, affected Vanderlei, affected a lot of different guys. But there's always the question of certain guys using steroids. And I think the fact that maybe if Crow Cop wasn't using anymore, that would have probably been the main thing more than the rules. Maybe he just wasn't the same guy. So the question is, was Fedor using? But I think there's been a decent enough little look at Fedor after, he beat Orlovsky. He was good in Affliction. He won early Strikeforce, lost to Verdun. But I think the rules would have been an issue. I think he was just aging. Now, let's say we threw Prime Fedor into the UFC. I think he would have done just fine, assuming he's not using anything. But, for great fighters like that, special fighters like that, it doesn't matter where it's happening. They're going to win no matter what.
Well said, and I will not even try to expand upon that. Very good job there.
Thank you.
Perhaps there's a promotion in the works. You never know. Probably not, though. Okay, now we're going to move on to preview questions that will have these little bits edited for the preview articles that will go up on Sherdog.com next week. So we've got a question from Europe One, who asks, so UFC China is going down. What's the word on the Middle Kingdom's ban on tattoos in MMA? Is it real? Do the powerful get exemptions, or was it just a Trumpian make noise instance?
I'll have to plead some ignorance. I did not know about that there was a tattoo ban in China. I mean, if I just had to go with a basic general knowledge of how the world works, yeah, I'm sure the powerful probably do get exemptions. But I don't know. I can't add too much of it. I guess I'm more curious about what's going on in Hong Kong and all that kind of stuff like that than the MMA ban. But I'm not really sure about that. What about you?
I mean, I would assume that if any entity can kind of get away with this, which, by the way, the rule itself is really stupid. I think this news broke a few weeks back, I believe it was, maybe a month and a half, something like that, where they just suddenly decided that MMA fighters in China are not allowed to have tattoos. So they would cover them up with, like rash guards and sleeves and whatnot. And I guess promoters got tired of trying to go around it, so they just stopped booking people with tattoos, which,
wow,
in the business of MMA sounds like you're greatly dwindling the talent field.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Like the wrong field to start banning tattoos in.
Yeah.
I would suspect the UFC can rise above that. There's a lot of money behind that company, obviously. Then on top of that, they are building the Performance Institute in China. I believe they're going to break ground on that to coincide with this event. If I'm not,
it's already open.
Oh, it's already open. Oh,
yeah. I follow Bo Sandoval, who's like one of the Performance Institutes. Like he's like he was like the podcast to do. He's like the strength coach, and he's actually was out there for a while, like a month or so ago.
Okay, so it's already open. Okay, it's the Mexico one. That's the one they got. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I got those mixed up. But yeah, like, so there's a heavy investment that the UFC is putting into mixed martial arts in China, and as always, you got to play the politics game in going into certain countries. And I'm sure this is something that the UFC has already addressed. This is probably not even going to become an issue at all for them, at least as far as the broadcast is concerned, as far as the final product in the cage is concerned. Now, especially the fact that the champion on this card, Jessica Andrade, has a fair amount of tattoos.
Yeah.
Now if they were just going around it by just booking fighters without tattoos, like all 6 of them, into this event, then all right, maybe there's something to it affecting the UFC, but I don't think that's going to be anything that's going to stop them from making the good folks of China a lot of money. Yeah. All right. Okay. Next question is from Marshall Beef. He asks, is Weili Zhang China's next superstar, and can she beat Jessica Andrade?
I would guess so, because there's no other Chinese athletes have gotten a UFC title shot. So she's already well ahead of the pack just on that level. If she were to go beat Jessica Andrade, then yeah, she's not even China's next superstar. She's got to be looked at one of the sport's next superstars. She's a UFC champion. She beat Jessica Andrade, who's been fantastic in the division for a long time now. So, can she beat her? My pick now would be Jessica Andrade, but I have to research a little bit more, and going into fight week and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think she's, at least now, especially after that event is done and more people get a look on her, if she performs impressively, she's going to be probably the most notable Chinese star in MMA from a Westerner's perspective and a UFC fan's perspective, for sure. I don't think they'll know many other Chinese stars outside of her.
Yeah, now this is where I take issue with. I take issue with the word star. How are we defining star? She might be the most prominent fighter, as you said, but as far as a star, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to work well in the Chinese market and whatnot. I have no idea. It's very possible she could go out there, get some crazy win, and boost her into some level of stardom in China. Very possible. But as far as personality is concerned, like, quite frankly, I don't speak Chinese. I've never talked to her or anything. I don't have any insight into her personality, so I can't speak to that level of stardom. Just, will people like her? I have no idea. Her fight style isn't exactly the barn burning style. Like, she has a lot of wrestling in her game that and can slow a fight down and whatnot. She did get the submission win over Jessica Aguilar, but I've seen 2 times that I've seen her live against Danielle Taylor and against Tisha Torres. They came to pretty uneventful decisions. So I don't think she necessarily has the fight style that's going to excite everybody. But we'll see. Star is the word here. She will be the most prominent Chinese fighter. May not be a star, though. All right, next question. And I'm just gonna pronounce it the way the Co-Main Event podcast does, because I'm not even gonna try to say his name properly. So here we go. Easy Dog Santos is on a 7-fight win streak and is facing unranked Li Jingliang. How many in a row will he have to win to get a top 5 or top 10 opponent?
I think it's more about, I think the days of John Fitch having to win like 45 fights in a row to get a title shot are probably done. It's more about who you beat and how you beat him. He's got some solid wins. He's got Max Griffin already there, Lyman Good, Curtis Millender. So if that's not working, he just needs to beat a more prominent name. And 170 is a division that's, ripe for guys to always jump and leap forward real good with some prominent wins. So he just needs that kind of win. And who it will be, I couldn't say. Maybe if he gets another win, maybe it's Ponzinibbio. Maybe they do that. But I feel like Ponzinibbio's too close to the top, so they probably want to give him a bigger name. So maybe it's a Stephen Thompson, someone that's taking a step back. Maybe it's yeah. I don't think they do Leon Edwards either. So I don't know. He just needs a name to get a title shot. If he can get 1 or 2 real more prominent names, that probably gets him a title shot, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, welterweight is just so clogged up, man. But he's got to get a top 5 or top 10 guy. He has to. Like, where else do you go at this point? I mean, and also the way he's finishing these fights is nothing short of spectacular. So Curtis Millender, rear naked choke. Luigi Van der Beene, flying knee. Sean Strickland, a wheel kick. It's kind of like, I just think this is just going to bring more attention to him. Like, I say you put him up against. You can put him up against a Leon Edwards, a Wonder Boy. Some of the names that have made more noise higher ranked in the hierarchy. Now, of course, if I were any of those guys, I would be highly resistant to fighting Easy Dos Santos because it doesn't do a lot for them. But the UFC could make those happen. The UFC can put someone who's top 5, top 10 in front of him. No problem.
I got a good one, and UFC loves doing this, where they like to make a name off of beating an established name that's probably more on the downside of their career, and this is how they pretty much built up Anthony Smith. What about Robbie Lawler? Because Robbie Lawler, based off of this last loss, and he lost to a very good fighter. He's lost to good fighters, but he seems to be in that area where he may be transitioning into like where Rashad Evans was 3 or 4 years ago, where Shogun has been in the last couple of years. Like, he's still good, but he's a name that has come back to the pack enough that the Rising Stars may have a chance to beat him. And if he don't, hey, he can still beat good fighters. If the Rising Star beats him, you build a new name. So maybe Robbie Lawler would be an interesting one.
That's a good call. I like that one. Darren Till, another good name as well.
Is he going to 85 or not?
Not sure. Like, we did hear some rumblings about him fighting Kelvin Gastelum. Dana White shot that one down. I asked him about that. He said that's not in the works. So if Darren Till stays at welterweight, Easy Dos Santos seems like a good enough fight to put together. Now, whether he stays at welterweight might be another story, but Anthony Pettis versus Easy Dos Santos at least has the makings of a very exciting fight.
Mm.
So there are options for him. But if he wins, you got to get him a top tier opponent. You have to. Like, I don't think you can throw too many of the guys who are, hanging around the top 20 at him before it just starts to get really cruel. What he's doing with a lot of these guys. So, all right, next question. Or is that the last question?
That is the last question, sir.
No, super trash on that.
Big time trash levels.
All right, so let me go right through the live chat. Just make sure that I don't miss any interesting comments. Adam Irish Conundrum says, definitely subbing. You are awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. So yes, everyone, like and subscribe. Share it with a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Mm-hmm. Now, what else? Designated member saying, American mating rituals are so strange. No intergender fighting. How weird. So,
I know. I mean, I know me and my girl, we have an intergender grappling match from time to time. Usually she isn't aware of it and didn't ask for it, but that's how you gotta self-promote a fight. You gotta force the opponent into the fight, and you just lock on an Americana, and then you're right into the submission win.
Yeah, I have no idea where this is going. so I'm just gonna stop it. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just gonna play safe and stop it. So I believe that will do it for the trenches. Now, Jason, please tell the good folks where they can find you and some things that you got coming up for Sherdog.com.
As always, Cheap Seats Chat on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not totally sure what's coming out. I think Mike Ridley told me that the Tiger Shulman interview, which I did a while back, but they were holding it so it could stand out this week in the UFC. Is supposed to come out tonight, or maybe already is out there. Look for it. He is the, for people in the Northeast that know Tiger Shulman's martial arts and all those schools all over the place, like the franchise. He's the coach for a lot of really good fighters, like Lyman Good, Shane Burgos, Julio Arce, Rivera, Jimmy Rivera. So look for that. It was a good interview, a real good in-depth one. Hopefully maybe if that coach interview came out, I'm hoping maybe my interview with Tyson Chartier is going to come out this week. He's a coach for Calvin Cater, Rob Font. We talk about Cater fighting Zabit, some of the things. But yeah, I've got some also. There should be articles also coming out for Friday's Combate Americas event. I have Joey Ruque, which has a hell of a story. Not only does he give me a really good recipe for beet salad, he talked about how he was in jail at one time for possible attempted murder. Luckily, he was not in jail for that. He didn't get a case against him against that, but he was in jail for other stuff. Shoe chef one time, head chef, another thing. A really interesting story. And also, I talked to Andres Quintana tonight. He's in. Joey Ruque is fighting for the bantamweight title on the Combate card on Friday, and Andres Quintana is fighting for the inaugural featherweight title on the same card. Talked to him earlier today. Hopefully, should have both of those up probably tomorrow and Friday, and that's about it. Cheap Seats Chat, Instagram, Twitter.
All right. So before I give my sign off, Adam Irish Conundrum asking if I could give a shout out to his small band. Don't know the name of the band. Maybe it's Irish Conundrum. I don't know. But if that's the case, shout out to Adam's band. That's what's up. I'm assuming it's available on SoundCloud or Spotify. Check that out.
Adam, right. Are you a SoundCloud star? That's it.
Yes, SoundCloud, the place where dreams are made. Now, my name is Ant Walker. You can find me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA. So I have Ask Ant, the mailbag column that will be hitting you up shortly. Not quite sure if I'm going to do a post-fight column on Bellator 225. We'll see how I feel. Got a lot of scripts in the pipe for MMA On Point, as I am one of their script writers. So look out for their YouTube channel to have your boy all over it. And let's see, what else? I think that's it. Off the Chain will be coming back to you next week. I believe next week, Jose Youngs of MMA Fighting will be joining the panel. So pretty cool. We're branching out and getting some other people to join Sherdog.com's panel discussion show. So I want you guys to check that out next Tuesday. Anyway, that's it for the trenches. Appreciate everyone who jumped in on the live chat with your questions and your comments. definitely appreciate you keeping the conversation moving forward. Remember to like and subscribe and share it amongst your friends. Now, you know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. You got to stay on the hunt for better.